Welcome to the Nostalgic Multiverse. Pingu, Bob the Builder, Fireman Sam, and Thomas the Tank Engine. These are names that we know throughout our childhood. Who do you think provided us with those in the early to late 2000s? Well, no other than the company, HiT Entertainment. And whenever this classic intro and jingle would play, we always knew that we would be in for a treat with any of the characters that I have mentioned or any other characters that HiT Entertainment has put out for us. But no one has heard this name in years. So where is it now? Well, that's exactly the question I'm going to be answering today. So let's get into it, shall we? As it turns out, HiT Entertainment was founded by Muppets and Sesame Street creator Jim Henson, who is also known for having another company called Jim Henson Company, which was responsible for shows like Construction Site, Fraggle Rock, and The Hoobs. Now, they're very unfamiliar to most of you out there in the modern age, but for those people who were younger in the United Kingdom or the United States may know these. As for HiT, it started as a company in 1982 known simply as Henson International Television, which would then evolve into what we know now is HiT Entertainment. So now you know what the HiT in HiT Entertainment means. But it would be a mouthful to say Henson International Television Entertainment, so I can understand why they shortened it. Yikes. What a frickin' mouthful. Remember those 4 shows I mentioned at the beginning? Make sure you do, because I'm going to be mentioning them in this segment. So, with this in mind, I'm going to say this. HiT Entertainment has multiple upon multiple shows that they've made, but have some shows in the background of which they were bought from other companies. Most of these original shows include Fireman Sam, Bob the Builder. If anyone remembers Francis, you are a legend. Same can be said about Rubba-Dubbas, as well as Kipper, Yoko, Giacomoko, Toto, Angelina Ballerina, Percy the Park Keeper, and especially Oswald. Now, I know what you might be thinking. Nostalgic, these shows weren't bought out by HiT Entertainment. HiT Entertainment owns these. What are you talking about? Yeah, those are the shows that HiT Entertainment owns. Now we're going to get into the shows HiT Entertainment bought. First, we have Pingu, who was actually bought out by HiT Entertainment in the early 2000s, and it was because of the fact that HiT Entertainment had bought out the Pygos Group, the owners of Pingu. Now, I'm sorry to break it to most of you, but Barney wasn't owned by HiT Entertainment at first. He was actually owned by a group called the Lions Group, and was actually bought out by HiT Entertainment in 1991. Now for everyone's favorite blue tank engine, Thomas. Now, HiT Entertainment bought out Thomas in 2002. This means that everything at that point was owned by HiT Entertainment. The Railway series and any copies produced, as well as the first seasons, which were made by the Brit Allcroft Company, and still keep the Brit Allcroft copyright. But the copyright is under HiT Entertainment as well. And the 6th season, which was the last season produced by Brit Allcroft and the Ghislaine Group. And then, in 2002, HiT bought Ghislaine. It is actually quite surprising and saddening to know that everything you knew about some of your favorite characters from HiT Entertainment was all a lie, because HiT bought them. They never owned them in the first place. Not much to say on the HiT Toy Company, except for the fact that they made Trackmaster. I'm not really a fan of the motorized stuff in Thomas and Friends, but I'm very glad that the HiT Toy Company introduced us to the name Trackmaster, instead of always having to say Tomy and nobody would know what we be talking about. But In any case, I'm actually more fond of Learning Curve, as they introduced us to the take-along ranges for both Thomas the Tank Engine and Bob the Builder. And for context, here's what the Bob the Builder take-alongs look like. Yes, these are real, and as you already know, I collect tons of Thomas the Tank Engine diecasts, take-along, take-and-play, it's all the same, so yeah. Sometimes I feel like I have an addiction to these things. Moving back to the topic, we also have Character, who developed toys for Bob the Builder and Fireman Sam. They developed toys for Fireman Sam till this very day. I don't understand how Mattel don't make them themselves. Speaking of Mattel, we have their junior company, Fisher-Price, who are responsible for making more Trackmasters and responsible for Take-Along's rebrand into Take-and-Play. But sadly, this would actually spell the end when it came to 2012, because things were actually about to change. In 2012, HiT Entertainment was bought out by Mattel, and meant that the older and less popular shows were getting erased from existence. Even Pingu, one of HiT Entertainment's more popular shows, was given the axe, but was sold off to Japan. We'll get to this later. And as for Barney, well, we'll get to him, because he was, as a matter of fact, bought by HiT Entertainment, but we'll get to him when we get to him. For now, let's focus on the main three cash cows here: Fireman Sam, Bob the Builder, and Thomas and Friends. Even before the Mattel buyout, Fireman Sam wasn't doing too well, especially after transitioning into CGI in 2007 after the original series had ended. And as unfortunate as it is to say, this series is not good, repeating storylines with a certain character that often causes problems in Pontypandy. We all know who that is now, don't we? But if anything, what's worse is that they keep milking it and milking it until there is nothing left, making more specials and more episodes. It's as if it's left on autopilot. In all honesty, this show should never have been shipped over to the United States. If it wasn't, it would have been the same as it was years ago. But now, there's nothing saving it. Nothing, not even a full-length feature film in live action or animation could save this property. And if you want to know more about why CGI Fireman Sam is absolute rubbish, then I suggest checking out the video by James A. Williams. He explains very well in detail why the CGI adaptation of Fireman Sam is not as good as people would say, even if Andrew Brenner was one of the writers. Now, Bob the Builder is a different breed in this case, as it transitioned well into CGI, that is until the reboot, in which I'm going to quote myself from a video I made months ago with Ellie. How do you turn an unrealistic masterpiece into a realistic piece of garbage? And what's worse is that Mattel is gonna butcher Bob the Builder some more, because this year we're getting a Bob the Builder animated movie. Now, don't get me wrong, a Bob the Builder movie sounds like a terrific idea. Okay, there was even going to be a live-action CGI hybrid movie of Bob the Builder, which had Dwayne Johnson casted as the Bob the Builder, but for this movie, their casting is different, their location is very different, and I'm sorry, no offense to whoever is making this movie, I know it's Jennifer Lopez, but are you confusing Bob the Builder for Handy Manny or something? If you're going to make a Handy Manny movie, go to Disney, alright? What you're trying to make here is a Bob the Builder movie. And I'm sorry, with the location you're basing it in, it doesn't feel like Bob the Builder at all. Now, let's move on to the final property that got the short end of the stick. We all know this one pretty well. Literally, most of my content is based around this simple property that originated from a book series and is now an utter disgrace to the book series legacy. Okay, so for this part of the video, I'm just going to give a short history lesson, so here it goes. In 1942, Wilbur Awdry made 3 short stories for his son, Christopher, when he was ill in bed, and prompted the creation of the Railway series, which spawned 42 books from 1945 all the way up to 2011, with both Wilbert and Christopher taking part in head writing. When it came to adaptations of the Railway series, the first was going to be broadcast by the BBC and would have continued if it weren't for an accident that happened on the original broadcast in 1953. Then there was going to be an animated series by Andrew Lloyd Webber, which wasn't picked up, but would prompt the creation of the Starlight Express. The last adaptation would be by Britt Allcraft, and it succeeded, and went on to have 5 whole seasons, a movie which did poorly at the box office, and then another 2 seasons which weren't headed by Britt, but by Ghislaine and HiT Entertainment respectively. And afterwards, we would get the HiT era, which spawned, 5 bad seasons, 1 bad special, and 1 good movie starring Pierce Brosnan. And last but certainly not least, we have the Nitrogen era, which was head written by Sharon Miller and would have 4 seasons and 4 movies. 2 of them which did very poorly and 2 which did brilliantly. Okay. History lesson over. Now to the main topic of how Mattel handled Thomas. Andrew Brenner previously wrote for Thomas in terms of magazine stories, and when Mattel brought him on, he made 5 whole good seasons and around 5 to 6 feature films. But one of the movies that he made, let's just say its reputation precedes it more from the series than the movie. This movie, and later rebranded Thomas series Big World Big Adventures, wasn't doing too well and would spell doom for Thomas as a brand and as a series. Because, first of all of the episodes were terrible. There were a few gems here and there, but not really a lot of good episodes. They replaced 2 iconic characters with one who was well developed in a movie, but another who was very underdeveloped and generic. Then, in 2020, Mattel had the audacity to do this on the franchise's 75th birthday. They had decided that they weren't going to continue the original Thomas continuity and give us a reboot in the form of All Engines Go. And I'll be honest, the only positive things I find about the reboot are the cute designs and certainly the die-casts. Everything else can just go in a dumpster fire for all I care, even the show itself. But I don't know what we're going to do at this point, because Wilbur Awdry is currently spinning in his grave, and Britt Allcraft has now decided to speak up about the reboot when it's clearly too late. I'm sorry, but at this point, Thomas is dead. We even got an announcement of a Mark Forster Thomas the Tank Engine live-action CGI hybrid movie, but we haven't heard about that since 2020, and whenever we do get an update about Thomas on the big screen, it's usually by people saying Mattel has updated their website to include the Thomas the Tank Engine movie, and there are still rumors of people saying, oh, it's coming out in 2023. Oh, it's coming out in 2024. Oh, it's coming out in 2025. I don't think so. We haven't heard about this movie, and that's that. Thomas is clearly dead at this point, but at least there are fans who keep making fan stories, custom models, and everything else in between in order to help keep this franchise alive. Now let's focus on the other 2 cash cows, one of which remained at Mattel and the other was sold to Japan. First we're gonna focus on Barney, and I'm gonna give him some background. So, Barney was introduced as a character in the 1980s show Barney and the Backyard Gang. But when he was sold off to HiT Entertainment, they thought to remove the title of Barney and the Backyard Gang and replace it with Barney and Friends because of the cultural appropriation of the word gang. Then, afterwards, when Barney was bought out by Mattel, along with many of the other HiT Entertainment properties, they didn't give Barney much limelight. And the same can be said about Angelina Ballerina, as both were only featured in one commercial from what I can remember about the Little Big Club. Afterwards, Mattel decided to give Barney a full-fledged reboot, which would be in CGI, and the title is simply known as Barney's World. Now, I don't know how this reboot will work. Who knows if the other 3 dinosaur characters will return, but hey, it's far in the future, so we'll see what happens with this reboot. There was also going to be a PG-13 Barney movie, but we're not going to get into that. Now let's focus on Pingu. Pingu was a Swedish animated series which just spawned the name Pingu. That's it. The title character is the same as the title itself. And seemingly enough, when they were bought by HiT Entertainment, Pingu just retained his name throughout the 5th and 6th seasons, which were produced by HiT Entertainment. And now we are here in 2024, where it seems we've heard nothing about Pingu. The only thing I can recount, at the very least, is that Pingu had an anime-style series in Japan, simply known as Pingu in the City. And it was a CGI stop-motion hybrid, as in it still retained the stop-motion style, but was animated in CGI, and most of the penguinese in that show was more Japanese, if anything. And that's basically it for those cash cows. All 5 of them. Because clearly, Mattel didn't care about the other 2, but they clearly cared about the first 3 I've mentioned. But now that we're in 2024, let's see how people are keeping HiT Entertainment alive. HiT Entertainment may be dead at this point, even their properties, because of greedy Mattel, but at the very least, HiT Entertainment lives through its fans. Not necessarily the Thomas fans, because, well, Thomas lives through its fans, not through Mattel. Ugh. But at the very least, HiT Entertainment lives through its fans by fans giving off fan-made logos and intros. The ones that I'm showing on screen right now are the most talented ones I've seen to date. And I've even left a playlist of these in the description below to check these out for yourself. And with that, that's going to end off the 6th episode of Nostalgic Rambles. This is the longest I have rambled. So if anything, leave your opinions about what you miss about HiT Entertainment in the comments below. And even more so, comment if you're excited for any future HiT Entertainment or Mattel projects, or if you're not. Because if you are not, then I am right there with you. I am upset. But in any case, just leave your thoughts and opinions down in the comments below. This is Nostalgic signing off, reminding you all that nostalgia never dies, and thank you all for watching this 200th video. It may have taken a while to edit, but it was well worth it in the end.